Ladies and gentlemen, I've spent 30 minutes in hair and makeup, 3 hours with the PCW who've written my script just to make sure everything is above board. My thoughts are not my own. Ladies and gentlemen, I've washed. I've even washed my hair and then tried to tame its fluffiness with a bit of water at the front. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Bible Hour, and it's day 103, and ladies and gentlemen, we are absolutely ploughing through the Word of God. Bible in a year, 3 times in a year more like. It is day 103, and ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege of bringing to you today the book of Ezekiel. Will we do all how many chapters there are in one day? Maybe. Stranger things have happened. What is there, like 44 or something crazy in this book? Miriam Freeman, first in chat. Miriam Freeman, you're like Bible Hour's #1 congregant, or whatever the word is. There's a fly. You want to get some of the merch, Miriam Freeman, there's t-shirts available, mugs, you name it. Welcome on into the Bible Hour, where we read the Word of the Lord. And I believe that we have made it to Ezekiel chapter 1. Over here. Ooh, wrong one. Go here. That's what we want. Ezekiel, New Living Translation. We welcome you in the name of Park End Presbyterian Church, proud proponents of the presbytery and infant baptism and all things biblical like that. Welcome on in. In about 7 minutes, we will begin the Word of the Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget Car Park Communion this Saturday, 11 o'clock a.m. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget to see our other things on YouTube. We strive to create Jesus-centered content. We strive to be a Jesus-centered church. We strive to be Jesus-centered people. At least we should be. Let's put that on silent. Sam Whittington in the house. Welcome. You'll be given one of these. On Saturday. easily portable. Can fold up into your pocket, into your handbag, your back pocket, into your Gucci bun bag. Hi all, looking forward to Ezekiel. What are wheels within wheels then? Wow, Petty Bar's not holding back. She is already on about wheels. Geesh kebabs. Yeah, I get my money. I mean, you make me work for every pound I get in this business, Petty Bar. Sam with it and looking forward to Saturday. Me too. Me too. I wonder if there's going to be an absolute inaugural blitz and a queue all the way back up to Llanedin. Hey, Petty Bar, did my homework. Come on in. Oh yeah, Leviticus 26. Nice. Paula Barrett in the house. Read Leviticus 26 and introduction to Ezekiel. Wow. Whose introduction, Paula Barrett? Windmills of your mind again, round like a circle and a spiral like a wheel within a wheel. That sounds like a lyric from some band that you have on CD form in the hallway of your house, Ricky B. Chris Henry in the house. Early for Ezekiel. She's here to get a front seat. Which one are you? Diane Robbins in the house. Betty Boy, I like that song. It was a song. I'm starting to know Ricky B like the back of my hand. Ladies and gentlemen, in 3 minutes we're going to be jumping 2 feet into Ezekiel and then maybe jumping 2 feet right back out, because that is one hot potato. Lion Handbook to the Bible. Yeesh. Nice, Paula B. We talked about it several weeks ago. Oh. I definitely remember. You won't believe this, Diane Robbins, but I drove past the car park today and that car was not there. So tomorrow I'm going to march down there with my little note and super glue. And if it's not there, I'm not going to stick it on it. Oh, the Thomas Crown affair. Yes. Ooh, it's a big one tonight, ladies and gents. It is a big one tonight. I got to get my head in gear. Thankfully, I just came out of a PCW meeting, so I've got all cylinders firing. Ready for Ezekiel chapter 1. Ezekiel, the last of the heavy hitters, maybe except for Revelation and possibly John. And Hosea is a bit weird in a good way. Ephesians, people have been trying to figure. Oh, Romans 11, 12, 10, 11, 12. No, just 9, 10, 11, and then 14. Okay, we got a bit to go here. Sue Roberts in the house. People will be given one of these on Saturday. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bible Hour. Park End Admin has arrived. I mean, I can already tell that I'm under pressure tonight because everyone seems to have done like extra reading for the book of Ezekiel. So, but I'm not going to hold back. We're going to slow this down and we're going to spell this out because the book of Ezekiel should not be shied away from. So here's a few things to say. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's tackle this book head on once and for all. So Ezekiel, 6th century prophet, priest, probably a street preacher as well. Ancient church, broken God's promises in horrific ways. And we're going to see that. And even what they were getting up to in the temple. So Ezekiel lives with the exiled Jews in Babylon. Okay, so this is starting like 5 years after they were deported to Babylon with King Nebi B. Nebi B has removed Jehoiakim, put his own little dude, puppet king Zedekiah, on the throne in Judea, although plucks his eyes out. Don't panic if you don't get it, people, because we're in this together. Ezekiel is pretty extravagant, and the things he says and the way he sees things, I mean, it is big. It's big, like symbol stuff. But don't dwell too much on specific tiny details of symbols, because we want the big picture here in Bible Hour about the Lord and his church. One thing that comes across in Ezekiel, right, you've got to see it again and again. God is love, and God is jealous, and he's zealous. And we're going to see that all over the place. So if you're in love with someone or anyone, like when a rival comes, you can't pretend it's not happening. And for the Lord of hosts to be in love with church and this rival comes, like idolatrous rivals, the Lord gets jealous and zealous. We're going to see that in Zephaniah later on as well. But jealousy and judging with the Lord is not because he's angry at the core. It's because he's a lover at the core. And who does he love? Well, Zephaniah, and we're going to see that when we get later on to that prophet, means the Lord hides, and he loves those who he's hiding in himself. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. MacDonald in the house. Welcome on in. So, chapter 1, right? And I'm going to slow down each chapter because there's massive stuff here. 13th year. The 13th year of what? There's like a million books on the 13th year of what. So we're just going to park that for now and say it's the 13th year of something. And what's amazing is even in exile, the word of the Lord still comes to them, the ancient church, in exile. Now, there's this thing, right, that you're going to see in chapter 1, and it's God's covenant love. Now, Rachel Freeman, I don't know if she's here, but Mirren is. They've got a dude in their church who's just had a boy called Hesed. Now, Hesed means God's covenant love. And that's the basis of the hope for the ancient church in exile and tears. The Lord is their rescuer because he's made a covenant to church that he will eventually rescue them. All right, and Petty was like, shut up, Owen, get to the moving images. So we're going to see like moving images and bustling activity. I think what we can say is the Lord is on the move. That's like a summary of all these moving parts. to wage war on his people. So let's jump on in. A vision of living beings. On July 31st of my 13th year, while I was with the Judean exiles beside the Kabar River in Babylon, the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. This happened during the 5th year of King Jehoiachin's captivity. The Lord gave this message to Ezekiel, son of Buzi, a priest, beside the Kabar River in the land of the Babylonians, and he felt the hand of the Lord take hold of him. As I looked, I saw a great storm coming from the north, driving before it a huge cloud that flashed with lightning and shone with brilliant light. Enemies often came from the north. There was fire inside the cloud, and in the middle of the fire glowed something like gleaming amber. From the center of the cloud came 4 living beings that looked human, except that each had 4 faces and 4 wings. And 30th, not 13th. Yes, that is correct. 30th, not 13th. Yes. If I have been saying 13th, that is even more wrong than my usual standard of wrong. So scrap your pictures, by the way, of angels with chubby little rosy cheeks. Here they've got 4 faces, 4 wings, their legs were straight, their feet have hooves like those of a calf and shone like burnished bronze. Under each of their 4 wings I could see human hands, so each of the 4 beings had 4 faces and 4 wings. Ricky B, normal age for someone to become a priest. Yep. Hey, Ricky B, you want to read some of the 400 books on the 30th year of what? It's gripping stuff. The wings of each living being touched the wings of the beings beside it. Each one moved straight forward in any direction without turning around. Each had a human face in the front, the face of a lion on the right side, the face of an ox on the left side, the face of an eagle at the back. Each had 2 pairs of outstretched wings, 1 pair stretched out to touch the wings of the living beings on either side of it, and the other pair covered its body. They went in whatever direction the Spirit chose. And they moved straight forward in any direction without turning around. I don't know if Hal George is in chat, but he asked me last week to do a little thought for the day, and I did it on angels. Well, I did it in 9 minutes, so I had to cut out all the exciting stuff. When he posts that, I'll let you know, because angels are fascinating things. The living beings look like bright coals of fire or brilliant torches, and lightning seemed to flash back and forth among them. And the living beings darted to and fro like flashes of lightning. As I looked at these beings, I saw 4 wheels touching the ground beside them, 1 wheel belonging to each. The wheels sparkled as if made of beryl Wensley. All 4 wheels looked alike and were made the same. Each wheel had a second wheel turning crosswise within it. The beings could move in any of the 4 directions they faced without turning as they moved. The rims of the 4 wheels were tall and frightening, and they were covered with eyes all around. Now, if this is the Lord on the move in spectacular dramatic theatrical style, the Lord is all-seeing. Then the living beings moved, the wheels moved with them. When they flew upward, the wheels went up too. The spirit of the living beings was in the wheels. So wherever the spirit went, the wheels and the living beings also went. When the beings moved, the wheels moved. When the beings stopped, the wheels stopped. When the beings flew upward, the wheels rose up, for the spirit of the living priests was in the wheels. Spread out above them was a surface like the sky, glittering like crystal. Beneath this surface, the wings of each living being stretched out to touch the other's wings, and each had 2 wings covering its body. As they flew, their wings sounded to me like waves crashing against the shore, or like the voice of the Almighty, or like the shouting of a mighty army. When they stopped, they let down their wings. As they stood with wings lowered, a voice spoke from beyond the crystal surface above them. Above this surface was something that looked like a throne made of blue lapis lazuli. And on this throne high above was a figure whose appearance resembled a man. From what appeared to be his waist up, he looked like gleaming amber, flickering like a fire. And from his waist down, he looked like a burning flame, shining with splendor. All around him was a glowing halo, like a rainbow shining on the clouds on a rainy day. When I saw it, I fell face down on the ground, and I heard someone's voice speaking to me. Ladies and gentlemen, Ezekiel is already seeing the Lord Jesus, the glory of the Lord. And a few, I think probably months ago now, I preached at Park End, and it is online, on the glory of the Lord, and I used this text to show the splendor of Jesus, who is a human man, and he's full of light, dazzling light, which is what this world needs in this day and age. What's interesting is if you were the original readers or hearers of this text, you'd be thinking with all that angel stuff back to the original banishment, because they've been exiled like Adam was exiled, and angels are the ones who enhance this exile and block the way. Hence you need a priest to return back through, and Ezekiel then sees this man. Glory. Chapter 2 then. Ezekiel's call and commission. Stand up, son of man, says the voice. I want to speak with you. Son of man, I think that term is mentioned more in this book than any other in the Bible. Jesus, of course, uses that term for himself. The Spirit came into me as he spoke, and he set me on my feet. I listened carefully to his words. By the way, I don't know if any of you have got any of the NIV stuff to hand, but the NIV commentary series is absolutely terrible on the work of the Spirit in the Old Testament. And basically he's like, the Spirit didn't regenerate and indwell people in the Old Testament. That's a New Testament, post-Pentecost thing. I'm not getting into that now, but that is terrible pneumatology, as if anyone could ever know Jesus without the Spirit indwelling in him. Son of man, he said, I am sending you to the nation of Israel, a rebellious nation that's rebelled against me. He's calling them the nation. He used to call them my people. But now they're just like a nation. That's terrible. A rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. They and their ancestors have been rebelling against me to this very day. They are a stubborn and hard-hearted people, but I am sending you to say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. And whether they listen or refuse to listen, for remember they are rebels, at least they will know that I have had a prophet among them. So Jesus is commissioning Ezekiel. What's interesting is, to get this vision and this voice, we will see that one day too. Yeah, nice one, Petit Bois, that we will. Like Ezekiel hasn't worked himself up psychologically to hear from the Lord Jesus. The Lord handles all that stuff. He hasn't gone like in some psychiatric, psychedelic state to hear voices from God. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Son of man, do not fear them or their words. Don't be afraid, even though their threats surround you like nettles and briars and stinging scorpions. Do not be dismayed by their dark scowls, even though they are rebels. You must give them my messages, whether they listen or not. But they won't listen, for they are completely rebellious. Son of man, listen to what I say to you. Do not join them in their rebellion. Open your mouth and eat what I give you. Then I looked and saw a hand reaching out to me. I held a scroll, a scroll which he unrolled. And I saw that both sides were covered with funeral songs, words of sorrow and pronouncements of doom. Jesus, he's massive on scrolls. He's always opening scrolls. He opens scrolls of Isaiah. He opens scrolls all the way through Revelation. He's just opened one for Ezekiel. I miss scrolls. Bring scrolls back. What's all this online stuff? So, Ezekiel chapter 3, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on into the Bible Hour. If you're just coming here, we're learning all about Jesus, who's commissioning Ezekiel to sort the ancient church out because they've gone a bit kooky. Okay, definitely avoid NIV on the Spirit here, but all right, let's just jump in. The voice said to me, Son of man, eat what I am giving you. Eat this scroll. Then go and give its message to the people of Israel. So I opened my mouth, and he fed me the scroll. Fill your stomach with this, he said. And when I ate it, it tasted as sweet as honey in my mouth. That's what Jeremiah said about the word of the Lord. Then he said, Son of man, go to the people of Israel and give them my messages. I am not sending you to a foreign people whose language you cannot understand. No, I am sending you to people with strange and difficult. I am not, sending you to people with strange and difficult speech. If I did, they would listen. That's us, by the way, the Gentiles. It came to us eventually. Some of us have listened by the grace of God. For the whole lot of them are hard-hearted and stubborn. But look, I have made you as obstinate and hard-hearted as they are. I have made your forehead as hard as the hardest rock. Don't be afraid of them or fear their angry looks, even though they are rebels. I don't know if this has been your experience, people, but having to share the gospel with religious church people, it's like the toughest crowd ever. Then he added, Son of man, let all my words sink deep into your own heart first. Listen to them carefully for yourself. Then go to your people in exile and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Do this whether they listen to you or not. Then the Spirit lifted me up, and I heard a loud rumbling sound behind me. May the glory of the Lord be praised in this place. It was the sound of the wings of the living beings as they brushed against each other, and the rumbling of their wheels beneath them. The Spirit lifted me up and took me away. I went in bitterness, in turmoil, but the Lord's hold on me was strong. Then I came to the colony of Judean exiles in Tel Aviv. Besides the Kebar River, I was overwhelmed and sat among them for 7 days. I'm telling you already, Ezekiel's the best book ever. It's the most Jesus-centered. It's the best book ever. You don't get better than this. Verse 7, Ricky B, the Old Testament summed up. But the people of Israel won't listen to you any more than they listen to me, for the whole lot of them are hard-hearted and stubborn. Yeah, and I'm not too sure. That's probably a good summary of the New Testament too. Right, watchmen of Israel. So, the watchmen, right, from 17 onwards, Watchmen are usually appointed to be people watching for coming danger. They don't look for their own people, but the enemy. But here, Ezekiel is appointed to watch for the coming enemy, and that coming enemy is the Lord God, who is out to judge the merely religious. That's really scary stuff. And he's held responsible if they don't get the message. Check this out, 16 to 18. After 7 days, the Lord gave me a message. He said, "Son of man, I have appointed you as a watchman for Israel. Whenever you receive a message from me, warn people immediately. If I warn the wicked, saying, 'You are under the penalty of death,' but you fail to deliver the warning, they will die in their sins. And I will hold you responsible for their deaths." Yeah, so the severity of preaching. I don't know if you pray for your elders and preachers and teachers, but you should, because those elders who have like a teaching ministry, which isn't all of them, like, pray for them, because we're dealing with people's souls here. Big stuff. If we get this wrong, then it can really go wrong. I actually think watchmen were God's grace, because God is warning people of coming judgment for sin. That's a grace of God, isn't it? Being warned, that stuff. So we could speak sweet words through the sentence of coming death and doom. I can only imagine the rock-like forehead. If you ever meet my son Levi, he's basically got that, McDonald, so I'll bring him round and then you don't need to imagine it anymore. But you will have saved yourself because you obeyed me. If righteous people turn away from their righteous behavior and ignore the obstacles I put in their way, they will die. And if you do not warn them, they will die in their sins. None of their righteous acts will be remembered, and I will hold you responsible for their deaths. But if you warn righteous people not to sin, and they listen to you and do not sin, they will live, and you will have saved yourself too. Then the Lord took hold of me and said, "Get up and go into the valley, and I will speak to you there." So I got up and went, and there I saw the glory of the Lord, just as I had seen in my first vision by the Kebar River. And I fell face down on the ground. Then the Spirit came into me and set me on my feet. He spoke to me and said, "Go to your house and shut yourself in. There, son of man, you will be tied with ropes, so you cannot go out among the people. And I will make your tongue stick to the roof of your mouth, so that you will be speechless and unable to rebuke them, for they are rebels. But when I give you a message, I will loosen your tongue and let you speak. Then you will say to them, 'This is what the sovereign Lord says.' Those who choose to listen will listen, but those who refuse will refuse, for they are rebels." All right, ladies and gentlemen. It's a fascinating experience reading the book of Ezekiel in the Bible Hour. So we have reached 4, and 4 and 5 basically just spell out the bad news. The bad news even becomes more clear, like of what's coming for sins. All right. Okay. And now, son of man, take a large clay brick and set it down in front of you. Then draw a map of the city of Jerusalem on it. Hey, that's what we do in our Sunday services. Hey, yes, more fuel for people who are too young to listen to a whole service to just draw stuff about this talk. Draw a map in the city of Jerusalem, Show the city under siege. Build a wall around it so no one can escape. set up the enemy camp and surround the city with siege ramps and battering rams. Then take an iron griddle and place it between you and the city. So Zeke, that's how I call him, basically becomes God now, and is placed, and the iron plate is separation because of sins. And of course their priesthood has all gone out the window because they're all nut jobs now instead of being like Jesus. So that plate, Zeke, is basically being God there. Turn toward the city and demonstrate how harsh the siege will be against Jerusalem. This will be a warning to the people of Israel. Now, lie on your left side and place the sins of Israel on yourself. You are to bear their sins for the number of days you lie there on your side. I am requiring you to bear Israel's sins for 390 days, 1 day for each year of their sin. After that, turn over and lie on your right side for 40 days, 1 day for each year of Judah's sin. So now he's being a siege victim, lying on both sides. So the 390, and it's important, which is why we're stopping here. 390-year history of sin, pictured by the prophet's 390 lying on his left side, stretches back in time right to the construction of the first temple. And they've all been going nuts since then. And then the 40 years, it's like Israel's ancestors in the desert were a lost generation, spending 40 years in the desert because of their sin. So the exilic generation now in Babylon, that means the generation exiled, by the way, is condemned to a similar fate for the nation's long history of sin. And that, by the way, by my maths, is a total of 430 days, which is the number of the years they spent in Egypt. Yeesh kebabs. Sheesh kebabs. Meanwhile, keep staring at the siege of Jerusalem. Lie there with your arm bared and prophesy her destruction. I will tie you up with ropes so you will be able to turn from side to side until the days of your siege have been completed. I wonder if I should lie on my side for Sunday's sermon. Oh no, I'm not, because I'm not preaching. Now go and get some wheat. Yes. Yeah, that's right, Betty boy. Yeah. So now go and get some wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, emmer wheat, and mix them together in a storage jar. Use them to make bread for yourself during the 390 days you'll be lying on your side. Ration this out to yourself, 8 ounces of food for each day, and eat it at set times. Then measure out a jar of water for each day and drink it at set times. I've got a book who went into he actually measured those things out and realized you couldn't really make a full meal or even a full loaf of bread with that amount of stuff, which is, so he becomes basically emaciated as a picture of the exiled, sinful ancient church who were just dying on all fours. Then measure out a jar of water for each day and drink it at set times. Prepare and eat this food as you would barley cakes. While all the people are watching, bake it over a fire using dried human dung as fuel, and then eat the bread. Then the Lord said, this is how Israel will eat defiled bread in the Gentile lands, which I will banish them. Like baking bread over poo would render him ceremonially unclean according to Moses. Just a smidge. And he's representing the unclean food that the ancient church would have to eat in exile. And he's a priest, so that's even worse. Then I said, O sovereign Lord, must I be defiled by using human dung? for I have never been defiled before. From the time I was a child until now, I have never eaten any animal that died of sickness or was killed by other animals. I have never eaten any meat forbidden by law. All right, the Lord said, you may bake your bread with cow dung instead of human dung. Then he told me, Son of man, I will make food very scarce in Jerusalem. It will be weighed out with great care and eaten fearfully. The water will be rationed out drop by drop, and the people will drink it with dismay. Lacking food and water, people will look at one another in terror, and they will waste away under their punishment. If I were you, I'd have life with Jesus than without. Ladies and gentlemen, it was the halfway mark. Please, everybody except Park End Church admin, who I need to go and cut a verse, 2 Samuel 10 verse 4, but don't paste it yet, can go and take 103 seconds, go and bake some bread, which has been baked over coals, just normal coals, just do coals. So Park End Church admin, could you please cut 2 Samuel 10 verse 4 and then somewhere else copy Leviticus 26 verses 44 to 45, please. But don't paste it yet. Welcome on into the Bible Hour, ladies and gentlemen. We are in Ezekiel. Then we got Daniel. Hey, we might even get to Daniel tonight. At the speed we're going through Ezekiel. 4 verses, 4 chapters already. Don't forget we got Car Park Communion on Saturday, but don't feel you all need to come for the first one. You know, I mean, there's only 2 of us serving. You could come on week 2. You could come on week 1 and week 2. You could come on week 2 and week 3. It's up to you. Which verse? I believe it was 2 Samuel 10 verse 4 and Leviticus 26, 44 and 45. Ezekiel is one where commentators really go to town on the imagery and at times go so far into it, I think, miss the point of the imagery, that it's really about the Lord judging church and rescuing church. Park End Church admin, can you focus, man? Leviticus 26, 44 to 45, please. Alright, so we are now heading into Ezekiel chapter 5. Welcome back. Okay, here we go. Son of man, take a sharp sword and use it as a razor to shave your head and beard. Use a scale to weigh the hair into 3 equal parts. Park End Church admin, can you please post 2 Samuel chapter 10 verse 4, because that was really humiliating in the ancient church, because church is going to be humiliated. The sword there, it's like probably military disaster. The razor was prophesied in Isaiah 7:20 that would happen. So Ezekiel is becoming the shaven ancient church, exposed, humiliated. 2 Samuel 10:4. So Hanan seized David's ambassadors and shaved off half of each man's beard, cut off their robes and the buttocks, and sent them back to David in shame. The hair, it's like weigh your hair into 3 equal parts. So he's becoming the judged church. And what you learn with these three ancient parts is God's judgment is so specific and meticulous and fair and like appointed to each person and category. Check this out. Place a third of it at the center of your map of Jerusalem. After acting out the siege, burn it there. Scatter another third across your map and chop it with a sword. Scatter the last third to the wind, for I will scatter my people with the sword. Keep just a bit of the hair and tie it up in your robe. Then take some of these hairs and throw them into the fire, burning them up. A fire will then spread from this remnant and destroy all of Israel. This is what the sovereign Lord says. This is an illustration of what will happen to Jerusalem. I placed her at the center of the nations, but she has rebelled against my regulations and decrees and has been even more wicked than the surrounding nations. She has refused to obey the regulations and decrees I gave her to follow. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. You people have behaved worse than your neighbors and have refused to obey my decrees and regulations. You have not even lived up to the standards of the nations around you. Therefore, I myself, the sovereign Lord, am now your enemy. I will punish you publicly while all the nations watch. Because of your detestable idols, I will punish you like I have never punished anyone before or ever will again. Parents will eat their own children, and children will eat their own parents. I will punish you and scatter to the winds the few who survive. Park End Church Admin. Can you post Leviticus 26, 44 and 45? Basically, Leviticus 26 underpins a ton of the coming chapters of Ezekiel, where they entered into this covenant relationship with the Lord, and they were warned if they go into idolatrous worship, the following things would happen. And it's almost like point by point. I said don't do this, you did that, and I said if you did this, this will happen, and the whole list starts to happen. But Park End Church Admin is just going to paste it, just a sample. But basically you need Moses to understand Ezekiel, and you need Moses to understand everything. Here's Leviticus 26, 44 to 45. But despite all this, I will not utterly reject or despise them while they are in exile in the land of their enemies. I will not cancel my covenant with them by wiping them out. For I am the Lord their God. For their sakes I will remember my ancient covenant with their ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt in the sight of all nations, that I might be their God. I am the Lord. Thank you, Park End Church Admin. So that comes in after a list of, if you disobey me, this is going to happen. Then he chucks this in. So bear all that in mind as we carry on. Verse 11. As surely as I live, says the sovereign Lord, I will cut you off completely. I will show you no pity at all, because you have defiled my temple with your vile images and detestable sins. A third of your people will die in the city from disease and famine. A third of them will be slaughtered by the enemy outside the walls. And I will scatter a third to the winds, chasing them with my sword. Then at last my anger will be spent, and I will be satisfied. And when my fury against them has subsided, all Israel will know that I am the Lord. I have spoken to them in my jealous anger. So I will turn to you. I will turn you into ruin, a mockery in the eyes of the surrounding nations and to all who pass by. You will become an object of mockery and taunting and horror. You will be a warning to all the nations around you. They will see what happens when the Lord punishes a nation in anger and rebukes it, says the Lord. I will shower you with the deadly arrows of famine to destroy you. The famine will become more and more severe until every crumb of food is gone. And along with the famine, wild animals will attack you and rob you of your children. Disease and war will stalk your land, and I will bring the sword of the enemy against you. I, the Lord, have spoken. So the Lord there is being faithful to Moses' words in Leviticus chapter 26, which some of you have read as homework. And now here comes chapter 6, and some of you got subtitles which probably mention hills or mountains. Basically, the hills are the mountains which once had altars to the living God, the Trinitarian living God, had become places of idol worship where they would put like their pin-ups, their ancient version of what we would call pin-ups, high and lofty, wonderful things that we think are great. So now they've got to be sorted as well. I'll put a little quiz question out there, see if anyone in chat gets it. Who were the only two kings in Israel, if you remember back to those readings, who tried to remove the idols from the high places? Again, a message to me from the Lord. Son of man, turn and face the mountains of Israel and prophesy against them. How, George? He is faithful in judgment as well as in mercy. Yeah, and if Ezekiel is the watchman watching the enemy, who's Jesus now from chapter 1 coming, even that's a mercy that they have time to repent. Because his words are honey. Son of man, turn and face the mountains of Israel and prophesy against them. Proclaim this message from the sovereign Lord against the mountains of Israel. This is what the sovereign Lord says to the mountains and hills and to the ravines and valleys. I am about to bring war upon you, and I will smash your pagan shrines. All your altar... Hey, stop Googling the answer, you lot in chat. 2 kings who try to get rid of the altars. Stop Googling it. This is what the sovereign Lord says to the mountains and hills, of the ravines and valleys. I am about to bring war upon you, and I will smash your pagan shrines. All your altars will be demolished, and your places of worship will be destroyed. I will kill your people in front of your idols. I will lay your corpses in front of your idols, and scatter your bones around your altars. Wherever you live, there will be desolation, and I will destroy your pagan shrines. Your altars will be demolished, your idols will be smashed, your places of worship will be torn down, and all the religious objects you have made will be destroyed. The place will be littered with corpses, and you will know that I alone am the Lord. This is such a powerful insight into Jesus. Like chapter 1 of Ezekiel has got to be one of the most glorious and splendid views of the man on the throne that ever existed. And here he's just annihilating. Josiah was one. Correct, Hal George. 1. But I will let a few of my people escape destruction, and they will be scattered among the nations of the world. Then, when they are exiled among the nations, they will remember me. They will recognize how hurt I am by their unfaithful hearts and lustful eyes that long for their idols. Then at last they will hate themselves for all their detestable sins. They will know that I alone am the Lord, and that I was serious when I said I would bring this calamity on them. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Clap your hands in horror and stamp your feet. Cry out because of all the detestable sins of the people of Israel have committed. Now they are going to die from war and famine and disease. Disease will strike down those who are far away in exile. War will destroy those who are nearby, and anyone who survives will be killed by famine. So I, at last, will spend my fury on them. Again, Leviticus 26, do your homework, Bible hour. They will know that I am the Lord when their dead lie scattered among their idols and altars on every hill and mountain, and under every green tree and every great shade tree, the places where they offered sacrifices to their idols. Hezekiah ben Ricketts, you the man. Hezekiah and Josiah. I will crush them and make their cities desolate, from the wilderness in the south to Riblah in the north, and they will know that I am the Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe this. I can't believe I'm going to say it. But we're into the fourth, so go. Take 51.5 seconds. Grab an egg, eat it raw, come back here for Ezekiel chapter 7. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, we got Car Park Communion on Saturday. Hal George, don't forget that I sent you a WhatsApp message about 1 p.m. this afternoon, which was a question. And it is now 21:46, and that question has not been responded to. For those interested in the break, I am on cooking duty tomorrow, and I am going to put a brisket on the barbecue at 6 a.m. and I'm going to take it off the barbecue at 6 p.m. and then I'm going to let it cool for 2 hours, and for the half an hour from 8 to 8:30 before I come into the studio for Bible hour, we're going to eat it, me and Mrs. Badstone. Where are we? We're on Ezekiel chapter 7, Sue Roberts. All right, Hal George. Welcome back in. So, Ezekiel 7. What's interesting, I don't know how it's going to phrase it in this Bible because I haven't read it before, but judgment is now for the ancient church. It's not coming anymore, it's now. And there's these words like now. Now it's happening. And what's interesting is the end of church for the church member Ezekiel is like the end of the world. Isn't that awesome? Like, he has such a view of church that when church gets wiped out now, that's it for the whole world. That is the world ending when church gets removed. And by the way, people, judgment is now, but the Lord does also have a day appointed of judgment, the final judgment. But Romans 1 particularly talks about how God judges now as well. And like there are tons of mini judgments along the way. And God can give nations and societies over to just godless behavior, and that's a judgment. See in a bit. And like then they start calling evil things good and good things evil. And then coming as well is this final day of judgment. Check all this out in Ezekiel 7. Oh, it is renowned for its patience. I think Bastard's Persian for patience. Hey, I don't want to be Persian. I want to be in the line of Moses. I wish. Then this message came to me from the Lord, Son of man, this is what the sovereign Lord says to Israel. The end is here. Wherever you look, east, west, north and south, your land is finished. No hope remains, for I will unleash my anger against you. I will call you to account for all your detestable sins. I will turn my eyes away and show no pity. I will repay you for all your detestable sins. Then you will know that I am the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Disaster after disaster is coming your way. The end has come. It has finally arrived. Your final doom is waiting. O people of Israel, the day of your destruction is dawning. The time has come, the day of trouble is near. Shouts of anguish will be heard on the mountains, not shouts of joy. Soon I will pour out my fury on you and unleash my anger against you. I will call you to account for all your detestable sins. Let me just read a quote that I read today. Niebuhr's description of liberal theology is a God without wrath, who brought men without sin into a kingdom without judgment through the ministrations of a Christ without a cross. Preachers who preach that sort of guff have not encountered the Jesus of Ezekiel. That is a fact. I will turn my eyes away and show no pity. I will repay you for all your detestable sins. Then you will know that it is I, the Lord, who is striking the blow. The day of judgment is here, your destruction awaits. The people's wickedness and pride have blossomed to full flower. Their violence has grown into a rod that will beat them for their wickedness. None of these proud and wicked people will survive. All their wealth and prestige will be swept away. Yes, the time has come. The day is here. Ricky B posting something tiny. That's Persian for Batstone. Wow. Yes, the time has come. The day is here. Buyers should not rejoice over bargains, nor sellers grieve over losses, for all of them will fall under my terrible anger. Even if the merchants survive, they will never return to their business, for what God has said applies to everyone. It will not be changed. Not one person whose life is twisted by sin will ever recover. The desolation of Israel, folks. The trumpet calls Israel's army to mobilize, but no one listens, for my fury is against them all. There is war outside the city and disease and famine within. Those outside the city walls will be killed by enemy swords. Those inside the city will die of famine and disease. The survivors who escape to the mountains will moan like doves, weeping for their sins. Their hands will hang limp, their knees will be weak as water. They will dress themselves in burlap, horror and shame will cover them. They will shave their heads in sorrow and remorse, which Ezekiel looks like at the moment because he's enacting the role of church. They will throw their money in the streets, tossing it out like worthless trash. Their silver and gold won't save them on that day of the Lord's anger. It will neither satisfy nor feed them, for their greed can only trip them up. They were proud of their beautiful jewelry and used to make detestable idols and vile images. Therefore, I will make all their wealth disgusting to them. Ladies and gentlemen, what icon do you turn to for life? Jesus is the icon of the Father. Look what happens when the other early church here, ancient church, turned to other icons and idols for life. I will turn my eyes from them as these robbers invade and defile my treasured land. Prepare chains for my people, for the Lord is bloodied by terrible crimes. Jerusalem is filled with violence. I will bring the most ruthless of nations to occupy their homes. I will break down their proud fortresses and defile their sanctuaries. Terror and trembling will overcome my people. They will look for peace but not find it. What do these people need, ladies and gentlemen? They need to feed on the Passover lamb, for their sins are many, but his mercy is more, according to Leviticus 26. On Saturday, we are offering the Passover lamb. And I invite you, if your sins are many, to come and feed on Jesus that day and know his body broken and his blood shed for you. Holy Communion, the breaking of bread, the Eucharist, the Mass. But the Mass has got some differences, to say the least. Come on Saturday. Calamity will follow calamity. Rumour will follow rumour. And listen to the sermon we preached last Sunday night on the importance of communion. Calamity will follow calamity. Rumour will follow rumour. They will look in vain for a vision from the prophets. They will receive no teaching from the priests and no counsel from the leaders. The king and the prince will stand helpless, weeping in despair, and the people's hands will tremble with fear. I will bring on them the evil they have done to others, and they will receive the punishment they so richly deserve. They will know that I am their Lord. For the ancient church now, the Lord is revealing himself, and the pagan nations are going to know that the Lord is the Lord as he unleashes anger against sin. That's one for people who constantly sing songs about how Jesus is my boyfriend and all he does is perpetually put up with me and loves me exactly how I am all of the time. They need to deeply consider the theology of the chapters of Ezekiel that we read just then. Jesus is not a mamby-pamby God. He is a divine warrior. Chapters 8 and 9 and 10 and 11, by the way, historically are one big vision. But because it's the Bible hour, we're going to break it into chapters, man. We're going to handle 8 and then 9. And there's one particularly for Diane here. I think that's what Sue will be thinking. Then on September 17th, during the 6th year of King Jehoiachin's captivity, while the leaders of Judah were in my home, the sovereign Lord took hold of me. I saw a figure that appeared to be a man. From what appeared to be from his waist down, he looked like a burning flame. From the waist up, he looked like gleaming amber. He reached out what seemed to be a hand. And took me by the hair. Then the Spirit lifted me up into the sky and transported me to Jerusalem in a vision from God. I was taken to the north gate of the inner courtyard and temple, where there is a large idol that has made the Lord very jealous. It seems to be right that the ancient church had a massive idol in the north gate of Asherah, or Ashtoreth. Asherah, well, we know all about her and what she was like, and the various phallic poles which symbolized it. So yeah, she was guarding any enemies coming. So Asherah and the Ashtoreth god, they were then turning to for protection. Can you believe it? Suddenly, the glory of the Lord of Israel was there, just as I had seen it before in the valley. Then the Lord said to me, Son of man, look toward the north. So I looked there to the north. Beside the entrance to the gate near the altar stood the idol that had made the Lord so jealous. Son of man, he said, do you see what they are doing? Do you see the detestable sins the people of Israel are committing to drive me from my temple? But come, you will see even more detestable sins than these. Then he brought me to the door. This is like the Scrooge story. I bet Charles Dickens nicked it from Ezekiel. Then he brought me to the door of the temple courtyard, where I could see a hole in the wall. He said to me, Now, son of man, dig into the wall. So I dug into the wall and found a hidden doorway. Go in, he said, and see the wicked, detestable sins they are committing there. So I went in and saw the walls covered with engravings of all kinds of crawling animals and detestable creatures. That's Romans 1, worshipping detestable fallen creatures. Idolatry. I also saw the various idols worshipped by the people of Israel. 70 leaders of Israel were standing there with Jezaniah, son of Shaphan, at the center. Each of them held an incense burner from which a cloud of incense rose above their head. Now, Bible Hour are now immediately thinking of the 70 elders who met Jesus up on Mount Sinai in Exodus 24. And were endowed by his Spirit. Now, the 70 elders of the ancient church are worshipping animals and Asherah. This is tragic stuff, how far church can slip. Then the Lord said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of Israel are doing with their idols in dark rooms? They are saying, the Lord doesn't see us. He has deserted our land. Then the Lord added, Come, and I will show you even more detestable sins than these. He brought me to the north gate of the Lord's temple, and some women were sitting there weeping for the god of Tammuz. Have you seen this? He asked. But I will show you even more detestable things. Tammuz that was a Babylonian god, and that was a Babylonian ritual, and they would wail and weep with him as he descended into the underworld to the god of Dumuzi. All this is going on in the life of the ancient church. Then he brought me to the inner courtyard at the Lord's temple at the entrance to the sanctuary, between the entry room and the bronze altar. There were about 25 men with their backs to the sanctuary of the Lord. They were facing east, bowing low to the ground, worshipping the sun. S-U-N. Have you seen this, son of man? He asked. Is it nothing to the people of Judah that they commit these detestable sins, leading the whole nation into violence, thumbing their noses at me and provoking my anger? Therefore I will respond in fury. I will neither pity nor spare them. And though they cry for mercy, I will not listen. They need this priestly figure to mitigate judgment now, to rescue them, because they are so far gone and their priests are busy worshipping the sun. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the word of the Lord. We've learned so much about the importance to keep church Jesus-centered tonight. God willing, we will be back here tomorrow.